How you doing? My name is Ron Smith. The show you're watching is called Star Talent Showcase. We're here at the Green Festival. Tomorrow is Earth Day. We're celebrating nutrition, good living, healthy eating. We're getting ready to hear from Helen Keller right now. So check her out. She's going to be awesome. We'll talk to you in a little while. Ron Smith signing off. Thank you so much.
The other morning I got up and looked out the front door and there was a kangaroo just sitting looking at me for about 5 minutes, and then it just turned around and hopped away. So, and I'm just next to the ocean, beautiful fresh fish, although I don't know how long they'll be not radioactive from Fukushima. Anyway, I'm come to you as a physician to talk to you about the medical implications, 3 major problems facing the planet, which can be fixed. Most of them can be fixed. I wouldn't come to you today if I felt that it was hopeless. So the first problem is global warming. And I see nothing in this country that is moving towards cessation of global warming. People are driving around in tanks, doing 5 miles to the gallon, driving their little girls to ballet in a tank. It's just obscene. SUVs should be banned by a mandated law coming from the Congress. I look at your politicians. It's going to cost Obama $1 billion, I think, to get elected, is it not? And I find that almost all your politicians are corporate prostitutes. And I'm very fed up with it, because if your country doesn't change, the earth is doomed. Because we all copy you, we emulate you, your Madison Avenue firms are brilliant with psychology, everyone is lusting after what you've got, including 1.3 billion Chinese and 1.2 billion Indians. On a finite planet, there is no sustainable growth. And we're going to run out of everything soon, but in the process, we're going to kill ourselves. Not just ourselves, but 30 million other species that cohabit the planet with us. I once asked Carl Sagan, who is a friend of mine, did he think there was any other life in the universe? And he paused for a long time and then he said no, and I said why? He said, because if any other species had reached the stage of development that we've reached, they would have destroyed themselves. So the question is, are we an evolutionary aberrant? Are we so goddamn stupid that we have to pour out CO2 to make money? Right now the Arctic ice is melting, right? So what's happening? The Pentagon's up there, Russia's there, Norway, Sweden, Canada. What are they going to do? 30% of the natural gas of the world is up at the Arctic Circle, and now the ice is melting. Well, we're going to dig it up, bring it out, make more carbon dioxide to kill the planet faster. 5% of the oil is up there and they're going to fight. They're taking their navies up to fight each other about who gets it. As some Greenpeace person said the other day, it's like pouring petrol on a fire. How dare they? We've got to stop burning oil. We've got to stop burning coal. And we've got to stop burning natural gas. Period. Period. I don't know where the heads of these politicians are, or these idiots who run the corporations. Why are they so addicted to money and power? What's the matter with their psyches? Are they mentally ill? Are they all suicidal? Yeah, they are. And I'm fed, they should be put in jail. I'm fed up with them. Damn them. I'm at the end of my tether. I'm 73. How much longer are we going to go on with this madness? How much longer? And when are the American people going to take over their country? You know, most people in this country think they don't have to vote. Well, I say to you, if you live in a democracy and you don't vote, go and live in Yemen. You have no right to live in a democracy if you don't vote, because it invokes enormous responsibility. In Australia, we have to vote because we get fined $50 if we don't vote. It's compulsory. Why aren't you registered to vote through your post office and everyone votes? What's the matter with your country? And then when you don't vote, you get a president like Ronald Reagan, who I spent an hour and a quarter with in the White House holding his hand trying to teach him about nuclear war. His IQ was about 100 and he had impending Alzheimer's. And 25% of the voting public voted for Ronald Reagan. 25%! How many voted for W, George II? His IQ was lower than Reagan. We're lucky we survived that time. And then once they get elected, what people don't realise is that your politicians are your representatives and you are their leaders. People don't understand that. People should go and see their congresspeople and senators every week when they come home to their districts and educate them. Educate them, teach them. Because what did President Jefferson say? An educated democracy will behave in a responsible fashion. Science has left the politicians far behind. Most politicians are businessmen, men with ties, men, and lawyers who grease the wheels of the wickedness that's going on with the corporations. They have no scientific knowledge, they're medically illiterate, they don't know what they're doing, and they're destroying the planet. And I'm fed up with it. So what you need to know is your president is not your leader. You are his leaders. For God's sake, get going. Take your country back. You need a revolution. I'm sick of this. We had a revolution in the 80s and I led it. I was an alien doctor from Australia and I was naive and stupid and I said we can get rid of nuclear weapons. So I recruited 23,000 doctors and we started to say nuclear war is bad for your health. We started dropping bombs all over the country, vaporizing people. Because when I first came here in '78, most Americans said to me, it's better to be dead than red. I thought they're psychotic. Yeah, we'd rather be blown up in a nuclear war, they said, than be communist. Ooh, communist. Oh, naughty word. So I said, well, what about the pygmies in Africa? Yeah, they said to me, they don't want to be communists either. And I thought, these people are nuts. So we started dropping the bomb, and in 5 years, 80% of Americans became opposed to nuclear war. I was even asked to address the annual Morticians Association about nuclear war. And I said, why do you want me to talk to you? And they said, well, we don't want to have to embalm radioactive bodies. And I said, don't worry, you'll be one yourself. So they passed a resolution against nuclear war. I spoke to the Southern Baptists. They were easy. I just quoted Jesus. That's easy. I spoke to the head of the Mormon church in Utah. You know, we've got a Mormon running for president now, and Reagan was going to base the MX on railway lines with 10 hydrogen bombs in each missile on railway lines in Utah. He was 94. I convinced him not to base the MX in Utah. It's quite easy because you talk to whoever you're talking to as you talk to each patient in a different way. So, in 5 years, 80% of Americans were opposed to nuclear war. I spent time with Reagan. I thought I'd had no impact, but he started to say nuclear war must never be fought and can never be won, and he started working with Gorbachev. And they, over a weekend in Reykjavik in 1986, almost agreed, 2 mere men, to abolish nuclear weapons. So there's a precedent. And we brought an end to the Cold War, all of us, 80% of Americans. We've got 1 million people in Central Park. That was the second American Revolution. It was peaceful, sagacious and Gandhian. Now we've got to do it again because the weapons are still there, on hair trigger alert, ready to be launched with a press of the button by Putin or Obama with a 3-minute decision time. We are all, as Kennedy said, the nuclear sword of Damocles is twisting by a silken thread over our heads every second of every day. Every second of every day. And every day there are 1,000 people hacking in to the Pentagon system, including Chinese, And a young boy aged 16, like my grandson, who's just developed adolescence, who's very bright, with very undeveloped frontal lobes and no moral conscience, could easily think, just for the hell of it, tonight I'll hack into the early warning system and blow up the world. I mean, that'd be a bit of a, you know, a high for him. We don't know, I don't know how we're still here, but I'll get into that later. Every second of every day our life hangs in balance. And you know, sometimes you hear the NPR say, "Woo," and a male voice says, "We are just testing the emergency broadcasting system." It could happen now as I speak. This is not a test of the emergency broadcasting system. We are under nuclear attack. Run to the nearest fallout shelter. Do you know where there is one? Like now? The weapons come in at 20 times the speed of sound and explode right here with the heat inside the centre of the sun. You won't hear it come in. It could be happening now. They take half an hour to go from Russia to America. There are 40 hydrogen bombs targeted on New York as I speak. Robert McNamara and I wrote an article about that for the LA Times. And yet they're talking about terrorists. When we go through the airports, we practically have to take all our clothes off. That's Cheney's paranoia. The real terrorists are Russia and America, who are 97% of the 23,000 hydrogen bombs in the world, threatening to blow up the planet. They're the rogue states, the axis of evil. No one else can destroy life on Earth, but you can. And the Pentagon has a policy to fight and win a nuclear war, and in so doing end all life on Earth. That's your Pentagon policy, and you own the Pentagon because you pay for it. You pay $1 trillion a year for killing. The Pentagon is about killing. $1 trillion of your tax money goes to killing. And you pay for all the nuclear power plants. So in fact you live in a socialised country. Socialism. Or you could call it communism if you want. So it's socialism for killing, socialism for nuclear power, socialism for coal, oil, and capitalism for all of you poor people, and you don't even have a free medical care system. In the richest country on earth, you don't have a free medical care. The only Western country in the world without a free medical care system? What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? And you let these insurance companies come in? Medicine is a sacred profession. We are here to look after you. We shouldn't have to get rich. Teachers should earn more than doctors, and no one should be making money out of medicine. We're here to look after you like the Good Samaritan. So you need to remove all these bloody insurance companies. Obama didn't have the guts to do it. You need free medical care like Medicare, which is free, like the veterans are cared for, free. I go to the doctor at home in Australia, I pay my money, I go next door, and into my hand is put the cash from the government for my fee. That's called civilization. Whoa, but it might be socialism. Oh, naughty words. Whoa. But you live in a socialised country, let's be frank, right? Okay, now, let's get to global warming. I've just been to a conference in Freiburg, and the predictions are, and I kid you not, it's going to be 3 degrees centigrade hotter by 2050. And by the end of this century, 6 degrees centigrade hotter, and that's antithetical to human existence. We're not going to survive. I've got 7 grandchildren, I'm a paediatrician, all the world's children are my patients. Why should we clean their teeth? Why should we immunise them and educate them when they have no future? When no one is doing a thing about making sure our grandchildren have no future. As James Hansen says at NASA, the godfather of global warming, we've got to stop burning coal now. We've got to stop driving our cars all the time. We've got to have mass transit. And I will tell you the answer. I commissioned a study called Carbon-Free, Nuclear-Free. There's enough renewable energy in your country. I've just been in California, bathed in sun. Why isn't there a solar panel on every single roof in California? Why aren't there solar panels on every roof in America, including Vermont? Why? Why aren't there solar panels on all the parking lots? So you buy your electric car from China, plug it in during the day, and it's a solar-powered car. And you drive it home at night and plug it into your house and power up your house. Why aren't there windmills all over your country? There's enough wind west of the Mississippi to supply 3 times the amount of electricity you currently use. Oh my God! Americans waste 28% of the electricity they use with a sense of entitlement, you know. Never ever use a clothes dryer again. GE makes good things for life. It makes clothes dryers, irons, you know, electric carving knives, refrigerators, nuclear power plants, so you'll use the electricity, nuclear weapons, nuclear missiles, and they're arming space, the most wicked corporation. Hang your clothes out, side. Oh, but Mrs. Brown might see your underpants and your brassiers. Oh, that's rude. In Atlanta, there are laws against hanging your clothes outside. How obscene, how pathetic. I mean, where are their moral values? And in the winter, hang them up next to the furnace in the basement, and they dry in a flash and humidify your house. If you stopped using clothes dryers per se, you would probably save most of the electricity generated by nuclear power, which is 20% of your electricity. You waste 28%, nuclear power produces 20%, period. There you are. And if you had solar panels on every house and the whole area covered with windmills and geothermal and cogeneration, millions of jobs would be created a la FDR. The New Deal. This is the new deal. This is the new energy deal. This book, Carbon-Free, Nuclear-Free, and you can download it at IEER.org. I'll be signing books later, you can write it down. It's a prescription for survival. By 2030, you can be carbon-free, nuclear-free, and lead the world towards sanity and survival, because we all look to you. You came from the 4 corners of the earth together to save the planet. I have great faith in the American people. They're really good people. But you've got to get going. The Occupy movement, you've got to start occupying Congress because you own it. You have to occupy the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, because you own it. You have to occupy your state houses. I've just been in Wisconsin where they've recalled the governor, that wicked man Walker. I mean, you've got to get off your bottoms, leave your Facebooks, leave your computers, and get out there and use your bodies like Occupy. That's a hope. Right. So, global warming fixed. Okay, next. Nuclear power. Oh my God. I will start with Chernobyl. Here is a study produced by the New York Academy of Sciences called Chernobyl, Consequences of the Catastrophe for People and the Environment. It's the most scary, terrifying document I've ever read in my life as a physician. Already, 1 million people have died because of Chernobyl. 1 million people of diabetes, heart disease, well, people are getting cataracts, premature aging in children, leukemia, cancer. And if you look at that map, hello, yeah, if you look at that map, oh, that's not good. That's Europe. And you can see Ukraine with a black dot there, that's Chernobyl. How did Chernobyl happen? Well, there was a stupid man who was a specialist in hydroelectricity who was running a reactor one night, and he did a crazy experiment. And the reactor reached critical mass and there was virtually a nuclear explosion. And the control room filled up with white powder, and he said to his 2 young men, go out and see what's happened. So they went out and they came back and said, it's gone. He said, what's gone? And they said, the reactor's gone. And he said, don't be ridiculous, go back and have another look. They went back and had another look, the reactor was gone. Those 3 men died within 2 weeks of acute radiation illness. Do you remember that Russian Litvinenko who had some polonium dropped in his tea at Claridge's? Do you remember? And he developed baldness. and he just faded away in 2 weeks. That's called acute radiation illness, when you get a massive dose of radiation. And you can see that one stupid man with one reactor contaminated a whole continent. That is just the cesium fallout. Cesium-137 has a half-life of 30 years. You multiply a half-life by 10 to get its total radiological life. So you start with a pound of cesium, in 30 years you've got half a pound. In 30 years you've got a quarter of a pound, okay? Cesium is like potassium, which is ubiquitous in body cells. It causes brain cancers, muscle cancers, testicular cancer, ovarian cancers. It mutates genes to cause genetic disease passed on generation to generation. That's only the cesium map, but 40% of Europe is radioactive for thousands of years. I do not buy European food at all. I look at the labels. I rang the man in Melbourne, Australia, who tests the food imported from Europe. I said, how do you test it? He said, oh, we do random spot checks, so much is missed. I said, what do you do when you find radioactive food from Europe? He said, oh, we dilute it with non-radioactive food. The solution to pollution by dilution is fallacious when it comes to radiation, because radioactive elements bioconcentrate 10 to 100 times at each step of the food chain. Grass, milk, meat, breast milk, babies, humans, algae, crustaceans, little fish, big fish, us. And you can't taste, smell or see radioactive elements. You don't know when you're eating a Hershey's milk kiss if it's got strontium-90 in it or not. Why do I say Hershey's? Hershey's is 13 miles from 3 Mile Island. There was a meltdown there. Huge amounts of radiation got up. We don't know how much because the monitors went off scale. The milk was so radioactive for the first 10 weeks with radioactive iodine. They powdered the milk till the iodine decayed away to nothing because its half-life is 8 days. Then they used the milk to make the chocolates. But we don't know how much strontium, cesium, plutonium, americium and all sorts of stuff got out where the cows graze to produce the milk for the chocolates. Don't eat Hershey's chocolates, they are medically contraindicated. 1. 2, if you eat a Hershey's chocolates with strontium-90 in it, the body thinks strontium-90 is calcium and it goes to bone, where it can irradiate a few cells to cause bone cancer or leukemia, which is cancer of the white blood cells. But it takes 5 to 70 years to get cancer. Whereas if I sneeze on you, in 2 days you're sneezing. The incubation time for cold is 2 days. For measles, mumps, chicken pox, it's 3 weeks. For cancer, it's a long, long time. And when you feel a lump in your breast, or you cough up some blood, the cancer doesn't wear a little flag saying I was made by some strontium-90 you ate in a Hershey's chocolate milk kiss when you were breastfeeding your baby. And strontium is like calcium and gets into breast milk and then gets into the baby and can cause the baby to develop cancer too. Do you see how nuclear power is a silent killer? You can't taste it, you can't smell it, you can't see it, and it lasts for thousands of years, this radioactive waste. So Europe is 40% is contaminated. There are wild pigs running around Germany, so radioactive now they glow in the dark almost, because they eat the truffles and the mushrooms that concentrate the cesium. The reindeer on the Arctic Circle are very radioactive because lichen concentrates the cesium. There are farms in England whose lambs are so radioactive they can't be sold on the market. So they've closed the farms down. Well, the government says 100 years, but it's actually 600 years they have to close. So do you see that one stupid man can contaminate and put at risk millions of people? So 1 million have died in the first 25 years. But this radiation lasts for hundreds and thousands of years. And there's a picture here, there are babies here who are grossly, grossly deformed. Do you remember the drug thalidomide that pregnant women took to alleviate morning sickness, and their babies were born with no arms or no legs or no brains? I had a man who drove a bobcat on my land and he had no arms. He drove it with his feet. And he had a radio show called Big toe because he worked the whole thing with his feet. He was a thalidomide baby. There are homes full of these most grossly deformed children around Chernobyl that we have never ever seen in the history of medicine. Yet the nuclear industry says only 4,000 people died around Chernobyl, and they're lying, and they have the money to lie, and they spend millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to tell you nuclear power is clean, green and sustainable, and they lie. Now, I don't believe that anyone should be allowed to lie. I think that Rush Limbaugh shouldn't be allowed to be broadcast. I don't believe in freedom of speech when the earth is in the intensive care unit and it's dying. If I lie in medicine, I would be damaging you or killing you. If I lied in medicine, I would be deregistered. So it's imperative that people understand the truth about what is happening. So that's Chernobyl. Now, what about your country? You've got 104 nuclear power plants, and you've got 2 very dangerous nuclear power plants 34 miles from here, called Indian Point. The terrorists who flew into your World Trade Towers had targeted those 2 reactors, and they were going to fly into them, but they thought they were protected by missiles, so instead they flew into the World Trade Towers and only killed about 3,000 people, instead of contaminating the whole of New York. And if they'd flown into those reactors, what would you have done? The Lincoln Tunnel would have been blocked, all the bridges blocked, you couldn't have got out, and all of you right now would be developing cancer, not all, but many cancers and leukemias, and dying. It would have been the end of the financial capital of the world. And those reactors are extremely dangerous. They're very old. They've extended their lifespan, which is dangerous because their pipes are embrittled. There's a thing called the bathtub curve, and it applies to humans and nuclear power plants. So it's shaped like a bathtub. In the first few months of life, children are vulnerable to infections, babies are. And the first few months of life, nuclear power plants, all their kinks are being ironed out. Chernobyl melted down in the first few months of life, so did 3 Mile Island. And then during most of life, you become stable. And then when you get old, my pipes are rusty. I've got a very big plaque in my aorta, and I can have a major stroke any time, right? My pipes are rusty because I'm 73. Likewise, the pipes where am I? Indian Point are rusty, and they're extending its life for another 20 years. It's like extending my life for another 20 years. I'll be like this. Breaking my hips, getting pneumonia, and that's what's going to happen to those reactors. How dare they extend their lives? And you know why? Because you pay for the nuclear reactors, you pay for the mining of uranium, milling, enriching, building the reactor, and then the corporations get hold of the reactor once it's built, and you've paid for it, and they earn $1 million a day selling you electricity that you probably don't even need.